Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. We got Drew Nowak in the studio with us here in Wisconsin, and I'm super excited to have Drew on. I've actually known Drew for a handful of years. He played 4.5 years in the NFL. He then actually, you're going to want to stick around to listen to this episode. It's very, very interesting. He actually never had planted a plant until 2020, and the first plant that he actually planted was the start of his 20,000 square foot cannabis production facility. And so he's just got a very great background of operational experience. He shares a story about having to actually cut his staff and how that actually helped his company become more productive. And he's even going to break down and discuss what has allowed him to, have a business that just after 5 years of opening is already nearing 8 figures. And again, even though he had no idea how to run this business, he taught himself through learning in different conferences, webinars, books, whatever he could do to get his hands on to learn about the cannabis business. And so he's a great inspiration. He's someone that you should listen to if you're looking to just get started. You're going to find a lot of nuggets that you can use towards whatever it is that you want to go out and build. And then at the end, he even kind of discusses and talks about his NFL career and who the most interesting teammate that he played with in the NFL was. So hope you enjoy today's episode, and thanks for joining us. How many years after the NFL did you start your cannabis business?
Our first plant in the ground was August of 2020.
August of 2020.
End of the 16 season, I went back to Western Michigan, finished my degree.
Yep.
Got my engineering degree there. And then, actually, interesting story with that. So I got a new agent, and I had an offer to go to Dallas for OTAs, and I looked at their depth chart. I knew they needed a third center. So basically, I was getting recruited to be a bag holder in the off season. And so I was found out we were having our second kid, my daughter Eliana, and I was in school, like in classes, physically in classes. And so I told, it was the Dallas Cowboys, and I said, I'll come down and I'll be a part of the Cowboys if you give me a signing bonus. I said, I'm in school, I'm moving my family, I'm having a kid, like I $50,000.
Yeah.
That's enough for me to quit school and provide for my family for a time that I would need to. And they said, we're not interested in that. And so I told Dallas, no, thank you. And my agent said, are you crazy? Tell an NFL team no. And I think oddly enough, I think it was like the biggest blessing possible for me to that was my next step in life, next phase of life.
Yeah.
It wasn't just about football and it was about my family and where I was going.
Yeah, you kind of already started to step out of that door, and you're like, okay, we're ready to transition. It sounds like. So then, you're the founder, owner, operator of Freedom Green Farms cannabis business. You told me that you never planted any plant until opening the doors. What was that like, and how did you get started? What hiccups did you have? Opening up a cannabis business without ever having planted anything before.
Yeah, so it was definitely a long journey. My dad was a big part of, being a mentor in the process of just, what to ask and what to think about. We were really lucky in, we're speaking with a bunch of people and figuring out what not to do. But we made a bunch of failures, and early on with who we hired, we thought people had the experience that didn't. And, once we got kind of fully entrenched in it, you really kind of determine what people's experience really is, right? Yeah. It's really hard to have the scale of, 3,000, 4,000 plants or experience of that. Like, a lot of people have grown cannabis before, but to be able to do it and lead teams and processes and understand the big picture of everything, it was really hard for us to find. So
it's a little bit of a wild, wild west.
Yeah, pretty much.
It's not like it's been an industry. Real estate's been around for a long time. Cannabis industry, I guess, been around a long, long time too, but maybe just under the, not above the table. So it's not as much to maybe learn from there from an operational standpoint.
Yeah, and it's really, learning your facility, learning your equipment, learning how to feed the plant, when to feed the plant, the light cycles, and then operational efficiencies. When we first started, we were harvesting about 29 to 30 times a year out of 6 rooms, and now we're at 35. You think about the revenue difference between 29 harvests and 35, it's huge. So we're pretty strict on our 61 to 62 days in flower. We only have genetics that kind of harvest in that period. We harvest one day, we clean the room, we transplant the following day, and we're back in flower. So it's like very, very quick movement for us.
You've been able to turn it 29. You now have 35 turns of that. Versus 29, and that's because the genetics of the plant, you've selected a different genetic
Yeah, partially
they're
genetics,
they're
and then
quick.
partially it was just setting the standard of, this is 1-day events. Everything is a 1-day event. And so we harvest 1 day, we transplant new plants in a room on 1 day. And, we were kind of letting genetics finish, or we were growing whatever was available. But now we've been able to, hunt or seed hunt, find our own genetics, also source genetics from other breeders that that fit us in that 58 to 63 day window. So then we're able to, it's really, the math is like 5.5 turns a year for a facility with 6 rooms. So we're almost to that like 6 turns a year with how efficient we are. Now we can find some genetics that finish in the 50 to 55 day range and tighten it down and get 1 extra harvest a year. But it's still hard to find that stuff.
Gotcha. Yeah, no, it's so. And I know we were talking a lot about Joel. We're still good, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. I know we were talking a lot about. You've kind of shared just what are some of the holes you got to jump through. With the government and the standards there that they have, and the restrictions that they put on you, the compliance they have. What are some of the things there that you have to do that other businesses might not have to worry about?
Yeah, I think we have, like, I just got done with an annual financial statement. So the state audits has like basically an accounting arm that audits your transactions throughout the year, who your vendors are, ask you questions about the invoices. So there's your annual.
So they're interrogating you.
Yeah, there's that. There's the seed to sale tracking that we go through with our plant movement throughout the facility, from seedling all the way to harvest, and it doesn't really leave metric or leave being tracked until the final end consumer purchases. So it's pretty crazy. The steps we have to go through to move plants to different aspects of the grow, the package tags, the source, to pull the source package from a package tag. There's just a lot of things where the state can see every part of your business. We also have cameras basically in view of every entrance or exit throughout the facility. We have 65 cameras.
Interesting.
Yeah, required. And they're on
every doorway,
24-hour.
Every single doorway, even if it's an internal to internal doorway.
Yeah.
And that's required by the government?
Yeah, by the state, yeah. So basically, like, they want to make sure that there's no way that you can do anything that's not state compliant, whether it's bringing in, material that you did not grow from whether it's the black market or a caregiver market. Also, it's, you find somebody, if somebody takes a bud from you, like if an employee steals a bud, it's considered a felony, which is pretty crazy. So it's just
hopefully that limits how many people are actually stealing from you.
Yeah,
right. I mean, as the business owner,
but we're pretty, like, we do a great job of giving back to our employees. So we do a monthly meeting, and we either do potlucks or lunches catered in, and then usually you can give up to 1 ounce a month per employee. So we give out samples. So this last month or last week, actually, we gave a couple of those shirts like I gave you.
Yeah.
And then everybody got 10 pre-rolls.
Okay.
So that's like a little bonus that we're able to give our people. So we are pretty restricted, but there's also a lot of like cool things that we can do with our people.
Is there a fee? All the compliance and like when the government's asking you questions and going through and tracking, like the government has cost to that. Do you have to pay a fee to the government then for
it's like
all
license
that?
fees, basically.
Okay.
So we have 3 Class C licenses. Each license is 2,000 plants, and each license is $24,000.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And that's annual?
That's annual, yeah. And then we pay a local license fee to the municipality we're in, so that's an extra $5,000 per license we pay.
And then then when you expand, then you're just getting another license or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Are there a maximum amount of license they're gonna like cap it at the state? Or
no, a lot of people have been fighting for that, but to this point,
it becomes like Bitcoin at that point.
Yeah, we're kind of at this tipping point though of oversupply versus demand, and it's really hurt a lot of businesses. And there's every week you're hearing new companies, whether they close their doors or lessen their canopy space. So supply is going to be decreasing over the next 6 to 9 months.
Well, that's what you were saying too. Like it's been headwind. So those have been some of the headwinds, right? But even despite that, like it's. I mean, congratulations to you, and like it says a lot about you as an operator and businessman. Because this last year, you're telling me it's the most profit you guys have had yet, right? By a lot too, not just by a little bit. So that's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
But that should be, like you said, then if supply kind of comes back down, your guys' business should be in a pretty good spot to reap the rewards from that.
Yeah, prices are going up. I want to say.
Yeah.
In probably like 2 years ago, I kind of saw the trend of where I thought, or what I thought we needed to do to kind of position ourselves where we're at today. And cannabis genetics is a huge part of people's success, whether it's yield, whether it's potency, your THC percentage, your taste test look, everything, like checking the boxes, right? When the consumer sees the flower, they want to go, oh, this is pretty, and it tests good, and it smells good. So we really invested a lot in hunting our own genetics and purchasing genetics from known breeders, and I hate that it's to this point, but a lot of our stuff has higher potency, but the market asks for that 27 to 30 to 32% potency flower. And so we've kind of separated ourselves.
I've got no idea what that means because I have no idea.
It's just like you're basically the percentage of psychoactive THC in the flower that you're consuming.
Gotcha.
So the higher percent. So a lot of people want high percent.
Yeah.
It's just
it's kind of like it's like a proof rating, like
kind
alcohol,
of,
right?
Yeah,
like kind of ish.
I know when I drink bourbon, I don't look for the most intense bourbon, but that's kind of how the cannabis market has moved to.
Well, but like when you're in college, though, you're like, look at you don't want the 1% thing if you can find the 30% thing.
Yeah,
maybe.
Nobody wants a bad dog 2020. So we did a really good job of investing in R&D and genetics in our facility. And we've probably grown 120 strains over our 4.5 years. So we've gone through a lot of different, learning our ways to what works in our facility and what works in the market. And now I believe we're probably in the top 10% of like price of wholesale price in the market in Michigan. And we work with good retailers. We work with good partners, great partners, and they pay.
Yeah.
And so that's where we've been really fortunate to build strong relationships. But it takes everything, right? You provide quality, consistency, and good flower. They're going to want to keep buying from you.
So what's it like? I know you've started to kind of make your own brand too, though, right? And so do you worry about that like upsetting the people you're selling to wholesale or not really?
No, I think that's going to be a tougher conversation if the brand continues to grow and be recognized in the market. I know like I've really pushed over the last like 6 to 9 months and having more of a social media presence.
Yeah, no, I've noticed it because you do a good job. Just again, like with your stuff on the Instagram and LinkedIn, you're pretty active, like just sharing a lot of different things.
Yeah, I just think cannabis is an experience, right? So we want not just the consumption of cannabis, but we want people to experience who we are in our facility and what we're doing. And I think that really resonates with a lot of the industry, and I believe that it's bringing more people to the market, to our market, to our products. But again, it's because if it gets in your hand once, we know that we provide quality, consistency every single time. And what I did early on is I sold to the easiest buyer.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that makes sense.
Because it was hard. I didn't have like a sales.
You're trying to get revenue going.
Yeah. And so it was like make the easy sale, still making decent money, but make the easy sale. And now we're fighting for market share and fighting for our brand, and it feels good.
I know when I started my business, people were like, oh, you shouldn't do that. Toilets and termites and tenants and da-da-da, right? Like, did grandma or your mom or like your aunt or anyone say, what are you doing getting involved in cannabis?
Yeah, I mean,
because it's a little bit more a controversial thing, right?
I think everybody was like, "Wow, that's kind of cool."
Did anyone try to talk you out of it?
Like a question, not like a statement.
Did anyone try to talk you out of it or not?
Not really. I brought the idea to my dad, and he was like, "Yeah, that sounds like a cool idea. That could be an opportunity." We knew nothing about it.
Yeah,
and. He was, like I said.
You're an early pioneer. Like 5 years ago, it's crazy. 5 years you've been in business. Yeah. So pretty early into the cannabis industry.
Yeah, I feel like I'd say this to a lot of people that if we were to do this somewhere else, hopefully Wisconsin someday, we have the blueprint.
Yeah.
We've figured out what works for us and the industry, and we can attack it from day one instead of taking 3.5 years to figure it out.
Right.
And so I feel like that could be a competitive advantage for us, long term.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. How many total in Michigan? Now the crazy thing is you were sharing with me before the show too, the product you make has to stay in the state.
Yeah.
Right. So really, I mean, you do have competition from all because people smuggle it across borders and whatnot. You have the legal, basically the legal product, right? But how many total manufacturers, or what do they call you, manufacturers, or what do they call you, producers?
Yeah, either way is probably fine.
Well, how many are there total across the state of Michigan?
So the license count for just Class C operators is over 1,000.
Okay,
which is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, now we have 3 on one site, so it's not
True.
Individual licenses, but I mean, Michigan has consistently been, retail has been selling in the $270 million a month throughout the state. That's all products. So I mean, there's a
2.7, so 3.3 billion dollars annually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big industry. I mean, for especially just for one state.
Based on there's 9-ish million people, maybe closer to 10 in the state of Michigan, and there's only really maybe 5 to 6 million consumers. Now we're able to pull from the surrounding states, right? So Wisconsin, people coming up to the border there, Indiana coming up from the border there, even Illinois. It is pretty restrictive there. The price of products is pretty high there. You got people driving from Kentucky and Tennessee.
Do you have to check IDs when you sell, or like to your vendors and stuff? Like, what do you have to check to? Nothing.
No, for us, we have to schedule a third-party transport, and so we set that up. They pick up and they deliver at retail. Retail, you have to scan your license in order to purchase.
Okay, interesting. What do you what type of what setting up your facility? I mean, how intense? Like, is there a lot of different things that you got to retrofit your real estate, your facility with to be able to do what you do, or is it pretty basic, easy setup?
No, I mean we invested a lot in just kind of like processes, equipment. So like for example, our HVAC is very specific on being able to monitor, and we stay within 3% and 3 degrees of set points at all times.
And the set point depends on what life stage?
The stage of the cycle of the plant. Yep. And that's daytime and nighttime, and so being able to have the equipment sized correctly in order to maintain those, even when lights are on or off, is super valuable. We had to retire a transformer and add a new service. We have 4,000 amps of service on our property, which is like, you probably have maybe 200 or 400
because of the lighting that is needed.
Lighting, we have 600 lights in flower, 715 watts. Our utility bill is pretty decent. It's like $37,000 a month.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But we also have basically the capacity of 1 megawatt of generator.
Interesting.
We have 2 500 kW generators. The plants never stop growing, right? So we're 365 24/7.
Right. So that's just an emergency scenario, right? In case
the power goes out, we turn those on and we're still operating. And just, a product and process efficiency, the way we design the facility, like there's a big hallway down the middle of it. We have rooms on both sides, and everything flows through that room. So you got starting product, finished product, grow rooms, like everything just flows really well.
Did you build it ground up? Or
ground up,
you ground up developed?
Yeah, so there was like a 1,800 square foot pole barn on it, and so we tore that down and then built new.
How'd you learn? Where'd you go to learn? Like, I mean, I think development's fascinating because it's just not even what I do, even in like multifamily and whatnot. How did you know like what you needed for a footprint, size? How like, again, you hadn't grown a plant prior to this, right? So of any type. So how did you even know like what that flow and like how you need your real estate laid out for, like, to maximize the process, maximize the flow?
Yeah. So part of it was we went and toured a facility in Colorado. That was kind of our first head wrap around, what a facility could look like. We did have cannabis contractors, like guys that had built facilities previously. They just didn't manage the project very well, so we ended up firing them throughout the build.
Been there.
But once you figure out growing, it's like math, right? How much water, how many plants do you have? How much are you going to water the plant per day? How much water do you need to pull out of the plant per day based on transpiration, which is like the plant putting water back in the air.
Which is based on the temperature in the room and stuff, or?
It could be the phase of the cycle of the plant. And so like if you know how to grow, if you know your inputs, you know the equipment in order to output, right? So it's been a learning process, but we sized things correctly early on and we invested to purchase the right equipment to be able to handle, our growth.
Well, and before we hopped on here too, you were telling me about like you want to expand and whatnot. So I understand what you're saying about the difficulty of like retrofitting a building that's already built to like try to find the best way for the process and the flow. So would you be retrofitting that real estate quite a bit, or would you like tearing down certain walls and
pretty much. It would be like excuse me. It would be like everything inside has got to go.
Yeah.
And then I build it the way I want it to be.
Got it. So when you said it was like $1 million per room or whatever you were talking about there to kind of retrofit, I didn't know if it was like equipment or like, but now I understand it's the kind of like the footprint and the flow of traffic, the flow of process.
Yeah. And there's 6 flower rooms today. I would break it down to 4 because the extra 2 rooms would be space that we would required to operational space to make sure we maximize everything correctly. But we could produce more out of those 4 rooms than we do in the 6 rooms we have currently.
Yeah. So is there anything that you can do to modify your building that would make sense to, or not really?
Necessarily. No, we're pretty much like we're capped where we're at.
Yeah. Interesting.
What do you do for heat? Like just heat to monitor the heat source in there in your facility.
So our units, they're like full. Sorry about that.
No, you're good, man. And there's a very unique reason why I'm asking.
So our heat bill is actually nothing.
Interesting.
Yeah, my house bill is almost as much as my facility bill. So our
20,000 for square foot facility.
It's all electric heat. So
are you all solar based then?
No.
No kidding.
Yeah, it's all electric heat. So we're able to heat and cool at the same time. Most they're basically like house units on steroids.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I don't get it.
Well, yeah, that's super unique.
This is like Michigan in winter.
Yeah, my electric bill for 20,000 square feet was $700.
But how is this place staying warm? Just because there's
lights.
So all your lights in there is literally that.
Yeah.
That's super
but
interesting.
My lights can run for 12 hours and I can touch them. That's how well they are with the heat conduction or however you want to say it.
But yet it's still producing enough heat to keep everything temperature regulated.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
Yeah, so they heat and cool.
So in the winter, your AC's having to kick on still.
Yep.
To help get the right temp.
When we start our rooms,
that's interesting.
Week 1, we're 83 degrees, 74% humidity. And we stay that for like the first 3 weeks of flower. And then every week after that, we bump it down.
How many batches of cannabis did you just completely F up because it took you so long?
I know, I was thinking
like,
that.
with what you're spitting out here, I mean, I'm like, what?
Okay, so we started.
I mean, I get it. There's probably cookbooks and whatever, right? Like recipe, but like I don't know.
And how long did it take you from concept to profitability?
Well, I have a funny story I like to tell because my dad, he made the biggest investment in the facility, and so I'm very appreciative for the opportunity he gave me. And after our first year, he was like,
yeah, when you speak of your parents, they remind me of my parents, just like super supportive in everything we do and your athletic background and like all that stuff. So that's awesome.
Like, well, my tax bill is due. So like, pay up. So I was like, all right, whatever you need, like we got this, but I didn't do a great job of tax planning. And so
like year 1 or year 2.
So because of that, we were in a tougher position as a business with the tax liability for like 2 years. We were paying monthly payments to the IRS, and so we really
not a good look considering it's also in the cannabis industry, right? Like which is already crazy regulated in the banking. It's all this stuff you do with banks.
We couldn't pay quarterlies. Yeah, we just made a payment every 2 weeks. We made a payment, and we did that for like 18 months until it was all paid off. And by the end of 2023, we had all of our tax liability paid off.
Tax bill came, and Drew's like, "Oh no!"
Yeah. So, but throughout that time, we grew in organic soil. We did cocoa pots. We did 7-gallon, 3-gallon, 1 gallon, 2 gallons, 3 different types of media. We water differently than we do now. Like we've tried 4 different types of nutrient companies. Now we're not stuck, but we use one brand. It's called Athena. They're very simple quality product for inputs for our plants. We learned they coined the phrase crop steering. So it's kind of like, I like to think of it as like, you eat a bunch of little meals throughout the day, and you're kind of like, instead of your metabolism going like this, you're kind of doing this, and you just kind of like keep burning, right? You're not eating big meals where you go boom, and then you come back down, you go back up. So we treat our plants the same way. We water our plants just like that. So we treat them, I like to say they're like professional athletes. Like we train them to feed what we want them to feed, for the frequency of feeds that we have. And so we get the most out of our plants. So we never did that. We just fed 3 times a day. It was on automation, automatically feed at this time. But there was no rhyme or reason. There was nothing to say why we were doing this. It was just, this is what we're going to do.
Right.
Now we have sensors in our pots. We have moisture meters that tell us our pot EC, which is your electric conductivity, which really just means your nutrient content in the pot, your pH in the pot. So a cannabis plant has a pH range where it's optimal for nutrient uptake. So you want to stay in like the 5.6 to 6.2 range for pH, where what you're inputting is going in.
I can't even keep my hot tub pH the right way, and you got 6,000 plants.
Yeah. So there's like a lot of things that we learned over the course of like, this is how we just get better, just a little bit better every day.
For sure.
We learned something new. I read books. I listened. There's a podcast
awesome.
called the Arroyo podcast, and Arroyo, they have a pot sensor, and they have I think it's like the Gromies or Growing with the Gromies, or I forget what it's called, but where people are going and they're asking questions to these guys who've been growing for a long time, and they're just like cerebral about cannabis. And so I just listen to that podcast all the time to see if we can figure out ways to get better.
Yeah.
There's a book that I bought. It's called the CCI Black Book. It's amazing. It's like there's pictures. It like draws charts out for you. And it's like if you just use the tools that are available. We just didn't look before.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times, like when you're learning the process, it's just chaos, right?
Yeah.
You can't focus because you're just, I need to win. I need to be successful. I need to sell. I need to do this. I need to pass testing. I need all these things. And we just weren't focused. And when we started to like kind of figure things out, we were able to focus on the little things that made us better. And now we're kind of to the point where we're hitting the yields we want. We're hitting the quality we want. Where every room looks the same every single time we run it.
It's awesome.
That's what's exciting.
Yeah, you got it down to a science.
Yeah. But there's also, what else can we do to be just a little bit better?
Yeah. So how many plants do you think you killed? Starting to learn it. Like, is it like 20? Is it 200? Is it 2,000?
I bet it's thousands. Yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
Just killed in the first year. Most of that happened. I mean, it's probably still
honestly,
happens, obviously.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I would say up until 18 months ago, we were periodically, whether, too far of drybacks or overwatering or wrong environmentals.
So that's even part of why your profitability increased so much. You figured some of that stuff out and you had less deaths.
Yes. That too.
Less cannabis death.
So we were on average, most of our rooms were 130 to 170 pounds. Now we don't harvest a room that finished trimmed flower for sale is less than 200. So we're in the 200 to 220 range every single room, and that's 50 to 70 pounds difference.
Yeah,
because we're doing things the way that what the plant wants. We're giving it what it wants.
So were you guys profitable your first year?
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
That's awesome.
That's crazy.
We were lucky because we were early enough in the market where prices were good.
Right.
So we didn't have to do it well because prices were good and there wasn't the demand didn't meet supply.
Yeah.
So
the cool thing is you didn't just chill out at that point and be like, oh, it's all good. Like you found ways to operate. So again, like last year when you run into headwinds, the industry runs into headwinds, you guys have your most profitable year ever.
Yeah. So we had in our first year, I like the black winter of 2021. Basically, it was when the market flipped on its head, where prices cut in half, basically in 30 days. We were selling flower for $2,500 a pound, and prices a month after that were $1,200.
You were selling for what was the difference? I'm sorry,
$2,500 to $1,200.
Oh, really? Wow.
In 30 days.
Yeah. What was the cause of that?
Well, every October, the outdoor harvest is called Croptober. That's when supply really increases, and you always see contraction in prices during the really the winter months, once just really like December,
That
January,
makes sense.
February.
Yeah.
So that happened, and we had 40 employees. And we really didn't have our like processes dialed in. We didn't have like good metrics or good standards for what we wanted to get done. And it was like the worst day. I let go of a third of our team because I saw like what people were holding us back, and I saw where the market was going, and I was like, we can't sustain if we have 40 people here.
What was the reaction of so you had so this was 2021. You had 40 people. How many did you let go? 14. So you figured out who you basically probably went and like, okay, here's our A, B, and C players.
Yeah.
And you let go of the C players. What was the reaction coming out of that from your A and B players?
So basically I brought everybody in a room after I did it because I don't know if this was right or not, but I like kind of fired everybody together.
You're the man in the arena, right? So we were talking about poems before this. Like I love the man in the arena, that whole thing. Like, that was Roosevelt, I think, right? Or Jesus, who did? Yeah, Teddy Roosevelt, I think. But that's what it reminds me of. The reason I'm saying is because you're like, I don't know if it was the right thing or not. But like the thing is like nobody knows necessarily in the minute or in that moment. But you have to have the balls or the courage to be able to make a decision because the lack of not making any decisions for sure, what that's going to end up being, right? So you brought people into the room.
So I took everybody that was left.
I'm getting amped up over here.
I took everybody that was left, and I was like, there's a reason why you're here. Because we see the value that you bring to the company, and we need to bring our A players together and get more production out of the people that we have here. So it was, whether it was experienced people, the more experienced people, or the people that worked the hardest or worked the best together. We set better standards in our rooms. We set better standards for our trim numbers, post-harvest. So like I track, if I give you 100 grams of flour and you have to trim it, the metrics are, I want to get you to give me 70 grams back of flour, 30 grams of trim, waste, and popcorn. So every 1% difference, so like let's just say I harvest 200 pounds or whatever, 1% difference is 2 pounds.
It's a lot. Yeah.
So if I'm 69% return versus 71%, it's a 4 pound difference. So
right.
do that over 35 harvests. What's 4 times 35?
Right.
A lot.
To multiply that with the money.
That's 140 pounds. That's $140,000 over a year just by the attention to detail that you are taking or not, or the genetics that we are growing or not.
So in that moment when you cut off 30%, is the 30% waste then at that point? Is that garbage basically?
So we sell our trim. So there's stems like stalks and stems. That's waste. Popcorn we sell at a different price, and then trim we either sell as like biomass price, or we make pre-rolls. We put them in our pre-rolls.
Then what about the 70%? That goes
into the packaged as packaged flour.
Okay, got it. Interesting.
Yeah, so it was just like really going operationally. We need to be tight. We need to crush the operations and be more efficient than everybody.
I just think it's really interesting how you did that. It's not easy to let anyone go, let alone over a dozen people, almost a quarter of your workforce. Were the people that stayed, were they grateful that they still were there? Did they understand the severity of the what was that? What do you think they were feeling?
I think people were scared, to be honest. Like I think it was just like, are we going to be okay type of thing? And like as a person that's in a leadership position, or like the one that's leading the ship, like how do you let all those people go and then still go, hey, we're good, just trust me.
Yeah. Right.
And I've always just said to them, like, trust me and trust where we're going and trust the plan. Like, I'm going to take care of you. We're going to be fine. We're going to be, we just got to do what we got to do to get to that point. Not all those people are still with us.
Well, right. Yeah.
But it was like the turning point of us like going, okay, we're going to dial ourselves in and get better. Because like I said, it was easy to sell flour when there wasn't enough of it.
How many of the people that were left just rallied, like absolutely rallied 100%, like upped their game? They were grateful to still have a role. Drew, like whatever you need, I'm here. Let's do it. Like how many of them? Was it 1? Was it 2? Was it 3?
I mean,
was it 0?
There's only like 2 or 3 of those people
that
left
that
are still with us.
They're still with us today.
Yeah.
But they probably in that moment. Do you think? Do you think right from the moment they were like they upped their game?
Yeah, our production increased dramatically. So we're like, for example, just over the years, we had people that were trimming like a pound a day, a pound and a quarter a day. So we had 14 trimmers, and they would produce like 30 pounds a day. We have 8 now that produce 40 to 50 a day.
Yeah. So what's really interesting though is like, again, you lose a quarter of your workforce and you're more productive. And it's like, I can't tell you how many times like around here, someone's like, oh, we need more money for that. Or we need another person for that. And I'm always just like, do we? Do we? And again, it's not to rag on anyone on my team or whatever, because I think that's a normal thing. That's a normal thing in every.
Sure.
Whereas like you hear stories like this, like, well, no, we actually lost a quarter of our workforce and our production went this way. Right. And so
I think if you put a bunch of A players in the arena, they're gonna produce. Like my office manager, she's kind of like a jack of everything, right? She can do it all. Like she can do AR, AP, HR, whatever. She is a part of the process. Like she's the most valuable person I have because of all the things that she can do. A lot of businesses in cannabis went like the corporate route, right? Where there's like, you have one person for this and one person for that. And like, we just said, okay, we're just going to step up and more people are going to wear more hats. And because of that, like, yes, I pay those people well, but we're so much more efficient and we produce so much better because we have like all A players.
Yeah, that's sweet. I love that story. That's a great story. Man, that's a great story.
Yeah.
I love it just, I don't know. It's, again, I go back to the man in the arena thing. And if no one's read that poem, just look it up. But it's easy to judge against someone. Like it's easy to judge if you're on the outside looking in, not the person that's got to make the decision. It's always easy to judge, but someone is in the arena fighting, right? You are the founder. You're the man in the arena.
Yeah.
You're the founder, you're the owner, you're the operator. Like you had to make a decision and you rolled with it. And
I think too, like these experiences have made me more mature as a person too. Like
yeah.
I was early on. I was very like emotional, like where are your emotions? Like very like okay.
I still have a problem with that some days.
And like because of all the things that we have gone through, it's like okay. And now something happens, and I take a step back and I go okay, just a problem. We just got to fix the problem.
Yeah,
right?
for sure.
We just got to see like this happens. We just find a way. Somebody comes and fix this. We just add a plant here, or add a person here, and we're good.
Right.
But early on, it was very like emotional response to things.
Yeah.
And it was like, you see when a plant hermaphrodites, it thinks it's a female, but it thinks it's a male. So it produces
There's people in the country that struggle with
just
that.
as confused as the plant is.
Yeah.
I think the confusion's starting to go away a little bit.
We've had a few they-thems in the facility. Plants.
Plants. All right.
Why do the plants do that?
So it's a stress response. Basically, the plant thinks that it's dying. It can be a stress response, and it can just be like its genetic instability.
Yeah.
So female plants.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So female plants can sometimes produce male pollen sacs and reproduce. So I don't know if that's considered maybe asexual.
Yeah, I don't know.
I forget where I was going with that though.
I'm sorry, because
I was focusing on. I know what I'm saying now. So when I first saw that, I was like, we got to kill all these plants.
Oh, sure.
We just got to kill them. Like, and so in a room we had.
Why? Because more plants will start acting that way too?
So when you have plants that show hermaphroditic traits, they create pollen sacs, and when pollen opens up, it creates seed in your. So basically, it pollinates the other female plants in the room. So basically, pollen gets on the bud, creates seed.
Yeah.
You can't be selling seed.
So you were worried about your entire.
Yeah. So like our first room, I killed 150 plants that had.
Oh no.
And because they were like. So
you intentionally did.
Intentionally did.
Yeah.
There's hermaphrodites that grow pollen sacs, and there's some that are like that. They'll grow like a banana. They look like bananas. They're like yellow, but there's no pollen inside of them. Well, these ones were the ones that didn't produce. Were not pollen producing, and that could be like a light stress, like it's too bright, so it's like it's thinking it needs to do something, but it's not going to affect or seed out your plants. Well, I saw that, and I'm like, whoa!
Just got the weed whacker out.
We got to kill them. So we cut all of them down, and 150 plants. You think about that. 150 plants would produce like 50 to 75 pounds. At $2,500 a pound, that's a lot of money,
right?
But today I would be like, okay, that's not a problem. Like we've seen that before. Just cut it off, and those plants are okay. So like I made decisions early on that were more like irrational.
You rushed to that, because you freaked out, like, emotionally freaked out.
I didn't experience it yet, so I was like, okay, that's like put that in my tool belt. The next time I see it, like we're good.
So you researched that a little bit after the fact of.
So how's your response to new situations? Again, you haven't ran into this before. how have you kind of adapted to your thought process, or how you work through new hiccups or new problems or new issues?
Yeah, I think like the first thing I do is I just go, okay, so how did we get to this point? Like, why are we here? And then like work our way back. Like, for example, this was about a year ago, we had a problem with plants and they just weren't producing well in the room. We're like, what is going on here? Like, the environmentals look good, everything looks good. And so I went back and I looked at, I graphed out our drybacks and our watering strategy for like 14 days, or the first 14 days of flower. I saw we were overwatering, we weren't getting enough dryback on the plants. And then I went to our environmentals. And then I looked and I saw that for some reason our solenoids weren't opening up for our CO2 intake in the room. So like plants, adding CO2 in the room helps the plants like uptake more light. I think the technical is like their stomatas open up more, which helps the plant like grow better. If I'm wrong, then sorry about that.
Yeah.
But I think that's what it is. And so our rooms, like ambient CO2 was like 400 ppm. Like that's just like the air we breathe in, right? Well, some of these rooms were like below ambient. And so you're trying to push light, push feed, and push all this stuff, and the plant wasn't responding. It was basically locking itself out because we weren't allowing the plant to grow. And so, like, you look at that problem, we like harvested, now this is sickening, but 35 pounds in 2 rooms, like each room 35 pounds, and we do 200 a room now.
Yeah.
So think about, that's 170 pounds per room that we missed out on 2 rooms. That's 340 pounds. So at today's pricing, it's like $360,000 to $370,000 that we missed out on because we didn't pay attention well enough to look at the environmentals and the watering and everything properly.
Right.
That's a big time loss.
So you're taught, like, this is what's nuts to me is like you're saying all this stuff and you really don't even, your education's not, you didn't go to college to like become a botanist or
No.
like you really don't have like the actual true scientific background, right? Like this is all stuff. So like you're operating, nearly a 8-figure business, whatever, if you're all right with me saying that is really technical. Like there's a lot of technical things here. Yeah. And you've only been in it for 5 years, and like you've been able to basically kind of self-teach, trial and error, then look it up, all this stuff, which absolutely blows my mind. Because again, like there's so many people that think they have to go to college still. I think obviously that's kind of turning, right? It has been turning the last 10 years. But like it just blows my mind again, like all the resources that are out there for people to be able to truly do whatever they want to do if they're willing to put in the work, the time, the effort, have to make sacrifices. Sometimes you have to let people go. Sometimes,
I've been at the facility at 2 a.m. trying to work on HVAC equipment to get the rooms in range. We used to have like light issues where lights would stay on, like a light or like one row of lights would stay on. They were on contactors, which is like super old school technology. And so like every day at 4:30, I had an alarm on my phone to check
AM or PM or
PM. Every day at 4:30. So on Saturday, 4:30, I look at my phone. I'd wait to see if all the lights would turn off. I did that for like 9 months until we bought new controls for our lights. But it's like stuff like that. I mean, you just got to do
lights.
what you
I know
gotta
you've
do.
shared like some footage, and I've watched a lot of your stuff that you do post and everything. Are these lights like just coming from the ceiling, or are they like closer to the plant, or what is
Yes, we grow 2-tier. So our rooms are on like mobile racks.
Oh,
so
okay.
They're 4 by 20, 4 foot wide, 20 foot long. They're set in 4x8 sections. So we have 2 4x8s and 1 4x4 in a row.
And they're stacked on top of each other. There's 2 floors basically.
Yeah. So we have a 1,400 square foot room. The rack canopy space is 800 bottom, 800 top. So we have lights that are drilled into the decking above the ceiling, so they're hanging from the ceiling. Then we have racks that are hooked onto the bottom of the second level.
And is it just white light, or is it what? Is
They're
it
cannabis spectrum lights?
Okay, so
they try to mimic the light,
like the
lights.
purple. Oh, they might.
Yeah, they're not purple. They're like whites and reds, and I mean there's like blues and greens and yellows, but it's really hard to see that with a visible eye.
Yeah,
mostly looks like white and red. So
if you go in, it looks like this, but with a red tint.
Yeah.
If you go into
but like
I don't know if you can
just
tell
looks
that
like
through.
white.
I don't know
Like,
if
it
I've
just
seen.
looks
I was gonna
white.
say it looks white.
Yeah.
Even in person, it looks white.
Yeah, just white.
I was gonna say because the videos I see, I'm like, it just looks like a regular. I was wondering about that on a video,
Yeah.
and so then how tall are the actual ceilings though?
We have 16-foot ceilings.
16 foot.
Yes, we're able to grow
How
our
tall is-
plants pretty tall.
I was gonna say so the plants get 6 feet.
6 foot tall, yeah.
Interesting. So that's bigger than I thought too.
Yeah. We don't really like them to get that tall, but some genetics grow taller, and it's the veg time.
Why don't you like them to grow that tall?
It's just
In my mind, I'm
so you look
thinking
at
more height, maybe
efficiency
more
of growing,
weight.
right?
Yeah.
So like if you see a plant when it's done, the stretch period where the plant like grows upward is usually by day like 25. It's done.
Mm-hmm.
3 foot of that plant is just stalk.
Mm-hmm.
Why would I waste all that effort of defoliation and labor on those plants to grow 6 feet tall? Yeah, it's cool, but the top like 24 inches is where all the bud is created.
Yeah.
So it's like it's really wasted labor on our part and time.
I see.
Time, like vegetative time.
Do the when the plants are stacked, does your thing like shift like this, and that's how you, or how do they?
No,
how
so
do
we
you?
have 2 sets of lights, so we have lights on the bottom and lights up top.
Right, but if you have to work on the ones that are on
We
top,
have so the company we work with is called, or we bought our equipment from, is called PIP Horticulture, and they created a platform system.
oh, okay,
So we have basically like rails that hook onto the sides of
Alright.
the racks, and then we put the
so when they're on the second floor, they stay up there, and then
Yep.
you guys, okay, all right. I'm just curious about that.
so it's like really it's safe.
Yeah.
It's not like you're on scaffolding and
Right, yeah,
rolling down the aisle.
yeah. Oh, I had another question. That is, Joel, what else do you have? Because I know I just had another question that just what. So the other thing too is traditionally, or historically, your business has been selling a vast majority of like just your product in bulk to other people that then retail it out. And you recently started your own brand. So what's the brand? Is it just Freedom?
Just Freedom Green.
Freedom Green
Yeah.
is the brand.
Yeah.
What have you learned, and what are your goals with the brand end of your business?
Yeah, so it's slower moving than I thought it would be. I thought
As far as to pick up traction and like
Yeah.
the marketing branding piece
Yeah.
of it.
But one thing that we've done that is really cool is every strain we have in the facility, we have like custom strain designs. So the T-shirt I got you, the Orange Julius, it's like
Yep.
a custom strain. So like we're able to recognize that genetic in the packaging that we create. That, Freedom Green is cool, and it's our brand. It's who we are. There's more to it. It's Americana, it's Midwest, it's blue collar cannabis, I like to call it.
Yeah.
But people are really drawn to the way that those designs pop out for each strain. And in this, like when we were able to get that to the store, I think people will really recognize that. But I still want them to know that it's Freedom Green, right? Like our colors of Freedom Green are white and green and like kind of gunmetal grayish, navy blue. It doesn't really like catch you. But if you get to know us, you're like, well, I support these guys, right?
Yeah.
But the cool colors that pop off, it at least gets you to go, oh, that's cool. Maybe I'll try that brand.
Yeah.
So the social media that we've been pushing more of like pictures of our pre-rolls, of the pre-packaged, more of our flower, just kind of getting people to, like I said, the experience Freedom Green. Like, this is who we are. Support us, But I think it's hard because there are so many brands, there are so many products. I mean, you have retailers that have 300 different strains in their store. Like, how do you differentiate yourself in a position like that?
So right now, your brand, you're in some other store right now, and that's the way people can pick you up, basically.
Yeah.
They can't buy this stuff on the internet, or could they?
No.
You can't buy.
So they have online stores, but you still have to pick up from the store, and some places actually deliver.
So like, do you have your own website that people could just buy from, or not?
Not from us, no.
Right? Because you don't have and you actually need to have a storefront. They can't come to your facility, right? Yeah. Do you ever see yourself having like a storefront or not that you can?
I mean, maybe someday, but I just think like we are like great at operations, like we're great manufacturers.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And I know that it's just a different game. I'd rather partner with people that are good at that game. Our biggest customer right now is called Loom, and they have 30 some stores in the state, and they have great marketing, great branding. They have a great team. They support us. They've been supporting us for 4 years. They purchase flower every week from us. So like when we work with people like that have good brands that I have recognizable, in their stores look a lot like Apple stores, like they're just like very like new age kind of.
So it's not looking like you're run down.
Yeah. Yeah. It's I want to say it correctly, but it's inviting to any type of person.
Gotcha.
You know,
Yeah.
not all cannabis places you would a 70-year-old that's looking for a nighttime gummy is going to walk into.
Right. Yeah.
Which is fine because the industry can be both. You know what I mean? There is I don't say it in a negative fashion, but
I might have just said it in a negative fashion. I
there's
apologize.
like the graffiti-esque,
Yeah.
you know, music vibe of cannabis, and then there's, you know, Loom is, in my opinion, is more on the like everyday consumer.
Gotcha.
So we sell the both.
Gotcha. Interesting. What are some of your goals at Freedom Green? You know, like the next 3 years, 5 years. What are you guys looking to accomplish? What are you looking to do? Where are you looking to be?
Yeah. So I mean, this is more of like a personal goal, but my dad taking the chance on me, the best thing that will happen is when I write that last check.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, here you go.
Yeah.
You know, that'll be a proud moment for me. That's kind of like, I just wanted that attaboy.
Yeah.
That's all I care about is getting that attaboy. And like him to be proud of me. That's all I ever want is him to be proud of me. He built his business from nothing. You know, successful guy, wears jeans and work boots, and you know, a lot of who I am is because of him. So to be able to say I did it, is where I want to be in 5 years. But for us as a company, I mean, you know, an expansion would be ideal. More canopy in Michigan, you know, increasing our footprint in Michigan, but would love to, you know, if Wisconsin, like I said, goes legal, would love to have a facility here, because I just know that if we turn something on here, we could be successful day one. And, you know, I have a good network here too. It's
for sure.
Just, you know, I had to earn the network in Michigan. Not that I wouldn't have to do it in Wisconsin either, but I already have like people who know who we are here, and I think it would help us push our brand faster.
Yeah, for sure. And you're not going to have a lot of those bumps that you had early on, right? I mean, you already fixed a lot of those, so you get to build off that. Joel.
Where did the mindset come from? Like, I think it's so important to understand, or to just reflect every now and then. Most businesses in the first 3 years don't make a profit. Most businesses, what is it, like 90% of businesses that start in the first 5 years go out of business. You went from startup to almost 8 figures in 5 years. That's so good. Like that's so good in an industry you knew nothing about at all. Where did that like entrepreneurial just figure it out, doesn't matter, like where does that stem from, and like what's your ongoing, I guess, inputs and information that you're taking in, that you're reading or watching or whatever, that's just kind of keeping that drive to develop the next thing?
Yeah, I think a lot of it like stems back to my football career. And just growing up in a household where I would play football on Friday night, and then Saturday morning my dad would make me cut wood with him, you know. But I think, and I hate to say it like this because a lot of guys say, oh, people doubted me, but I really do believe that I was always like that guy that wasn't good enough, right? Like I wasn't big enough, fast enough, strong enough.
It was true. I mean, we were talking about that with football, you know, like, I mean, again, going to college, and like the guy that was ranked number one in the state at, you know, defensive end, who ended up doing nothing in college. You end up going to become the MAC player of the year. You're undrafted. You play 4.5 years, right? So that's...
And I played offensive line, not even defensive line.
Right, yeah.
You know?
Didn't even hit switch positions.
Yeah. So like, I just feel like, not that, I don't want to say chip in a negative way, but I've like always had that, like, I'm going to make it happen. And my football career didn't end the way I wanted it to. Most people's doesn't, whether it's injuries or like, I believe that the NFL there's a political arm to it as well that is unfortunate. But, you know, regardless of that, the cannabis space allowed me to have my chance to not be doubted. Like I got to determine my success, my team, you know, not just me, but it was like I get to wake up every day, and if I fail, like I take all the blame from it. If I succeed, it's we succeed. I don't want to say it's me, but like that is then the driving factor for me. Money is not so much like the driving force. I think money is a byproduct of success and doing things right every single day. So like that stuff comes, it will come. but I want to win so bad. And I think we're doing that. And it feels like really, really good, but it's also that like complacency. You can't let that set in either. You know, we've had a Murphy day at work today when I was gone. Like the one day I'm gone, we had like 5 problems. It's like, well, how does this happen, right? So like, it's just not letting yourself, you know, sit and feel comfortable. Not that you always have to be looking over your shoulder, but saying, okay, what can I do next? What can I do better? And where, you know, what are the things that I don't necessarily see today that are going to come and bite me tomorrow? But also like, I feel like I'm chasing my dad too, because I want to be like him. You know, I want to, well, he also said this, that we would never be able to buy his business. My dad said that to me. So like, that's kind of a driving force too. And not that he wasn't being not trying to be a jerk or anything about it, but you know, he's built a good business. And so that's kind of like someday I would like to be like, okay, yeah, this is what you said and this is what's actually happening, you know? But again, it's just kind of going back to just wanting to win and just be the best that we can be.
That's awesome. I mean, and it's, I mean, how much, I mean, even if you were the best and biggest in Michigan, if you get to the point in like 5 years, 7 years, you're the biggest, the best in Michigan, and maybe you already think you are, I don't, whatever, then what? And I'm asking just for a specific question because I just want to see what your like response is. Then what? Then what do you think? Like, do you pack it up? Are you done then? Or what would you focus on at that point? What would be the driver, do you think?
Wow, that's pretty, I mean, I think, I don't know, I haven't really thought that far out, I guess, but like, you know, organic growth, like potentially acquiring, you know, somebody in the space would be our next step, right? And we are by no means even close to being the biggest player in the state of Michigan, you know, so there's like so much more room to grow in the space. But you're saying like maybe more personally, like you've done what you wanted to do personally?
Okay, so let me go back, man, ask it a different way. What if you get to the point and in 4 years or 6 years, whatever it might be, 10 years, you write that check to your dad to buy the businesses? Then what?
Yeah. I don't know. I really don't.
What do you think?
Like I feel like.
What do you think you would do the next day?
Yeah.
And the week after, and the following like 3 months, year, what do you think you would do?
Find something else.
I'm just curious. I'm just curious.
I know. I think you've said it before, but like that, like an abundance mindset, right?
Yeah.
And like I look at you and I'm like, damn, like how do you do all this stuff? You know,
Yeah.
like how are you in all these things? And so I think about that and like what we're doing. But I don't know like where that could take us.
Yeah.
I don't like if we could build in Wisconsin, like that's the next step.
Yeah, for sure.
That's the next challenge.
Yeah.
But when I write that check, I could sit on this facility the way it is for the next 25 years. And
yeah.
It doesn't matter.
Right.
But like, what do you want? Like, that's a question is like, what do I want? Like, I think you say it a lot too. You said it more recently in some of these podcasts is, you know, time value of money. Like, what's your time worth?
Yeah.
And what's your time worth with your family?
Yeah.
And so to me, it's like, I have so many kids.
Yeah.
That
6 of them.
Before I left, I was like, I need to make more time to be more like individual with each one of our kids. It's a lot to do. One-on-one time with our kids, you know. Yeah. And so what I would like to do is have that freedom and flexibility to spend that time. And that's not not financially anything, but like if the kids have sporting events and we have 3 of them that have to travel, like I want the freedom to say I'm leaving on a Wednesday and I'm out.
For sure.
Like I gotta go do this.
So it's the presence of being your kids. I was just curious. I just wanted to hear what you were going to say. Cause like, I think by you saying, well, I think it's like, what's next? Right.
Yeah.
Cause that's exactly like, I'm like, okay, like what's next? What's next? And the thing is, it doesn't have to be like all financial. It doesn't have to be, it's like, but like I think the thing is with what Joel was asking you and your answer there, I think you're very similar to me, and maybe it's partly the sports background or something, but it's like there's all these things that I like and enjoy in life, right? And spiritual, health and wellness, the family, the business, whatever. And it's like, for me, it's all about chasing the potential. And so that's why I'm always in all those areas. Like, here's where I'm at. Here's I want to chase that gap, and I want that gap. And then while I'm closing that gap down, I want my potential to keep growing. I always want to be able to, again, what's next? What's next? Like, we do this next. We do this next. Because I never want to rest on what I did. I never want to rest on that I made it to my kids one game of my kids.
Yeah.
Because now he's got 9 more. Right, I can't rest on the fact that I went to 1, because later he's not going to care that he or she, Brandon or Kurt, they're not going to care that then I missed the next. They're going to think about I missed the next 9, right? And so it's like, how can I'm always like, what's next? Because you can never rest on, all 3 of us in this room are married. Like, if we celebrated the last holiday, or if I missed my wife's birthday this year or whatever. Well, don't worry. Last year I said happy birthday to you, right? Like, you can't rest on last year's birthday, right? Now I'm not the greatest with birthdays and holidays and all that stuff, right? I got a lot of potential. I got to close on there, right? But you can't rest on what you did, and I think that's the thing. That's why I was just interested to see what you were going to say. But I think you kind of summed it up like, well, what's next, right? And then you went right into it, like, well, how can I, at that point, how can I, get more time, right? And
I think too, I don't have a other than my dad as my mentor. I don't even know how we're going to scale the business. I know how much money we could possibly make. We have our projections.
And
I know what stuff costs to build, and I know what we would need to sell in order to be as successful as we are today. I know, those metrics, but it's just kind of going out and doing it.
Yeah.
And is it cannabis? Yeah. Could it be steel manufacturing in my dad's business? Yeah, it could be that too.
Yeah.
It could be all right, cannabis is I have teams that are handling it. Now I'm going to go tackle this something new.
Yep.
So I want, and then the experiences thing, being able to have our kids experience things. We don't do a lot because it's hard to do a lot with this many kids that we have.
Yeah, you got to get half a freaking plane.
Yeah.
Southwest airline. You're going to take up the whole flight.
So we're driving to Florida this year for spring break. It's well,
how do you even do that?
I have a 9-passenger Ritz. That's
brutal.
That's
brutal.
So it's I want to be able to have those times as well, because my oldest is already almost 9. It's holy cow, 9 years old. I can't believe that she's already to that age.
Yeah.
You have 10 years 6 under 9.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And you got 4, right? I got 2.
A little bit of an older
I got
bracket,
2. So amongst 3 of us, we got 12, and I've only got 2 of them.
So
that's crazy.
It's basically every 20 to 22 months, we have another baby.
Sure.
Yeah. So it's.
So how many months are you away now from the next cycle?
Usually it's about 10 months. 10
I asked
to 12
if
months of
he'd-
breastfeeding, and then
Yeah.
it's
There it is. Yep, there it is. Okay.
But you talk about how you want to own an NFL team. And I think that's amazing. But I just don't know if I see that path yet for me to get to that level of being successful.
Yeah. I don't know. I freaking have doubts of it. I have doubts of it all the time. Right.
But
Am I going to ever do that? I don't know.
Right.
I think for me though too, it's again, I know that by just shooting for something that I think would be freaking awesome to do, I'm still gonna end up in a pretty good spot, and I'm gonna enjoy the process, the ups and downs, and I'm gonna enjoy all the moment. When Crew wakes up, he's about to turn 8 months here in 2 weeks or so. When he wakes up in the middle of the night, and I'll still change him first, and then my wife will come and feed him. Where I still get up 98% of the time. There's sometimes Jamie will tell me the next morning, "You didn't hear him last night? You didn't get up and do your." I'm like, sorry, I didn't hear him at all. You could have woke me up. I would have gone.
Yeah.
I never wake up at 2 a.m. when I got to change him and be oh, this sucks. I'm almost amped and excited to go do it. There's some days I'm ugh. But I try to always get rid of that, out of that mind, because I'm this too will pass, right? And then we're gonna be man, I wish that we could go back. So the challenge for you should be also try to figure out ASAP how to get more time, right?
Yeah.
And to create more time with your kids now versus waiting, right? I mean, and again, we're never going to be perfectly balanced, because it's just it's just not going to happen. But it's like, how can you start to make sure you do that now, you know, to not have a regret later too, you know? But yeah, that's what I always try to think about too, is just, but that for me, and I think you're similar. It's like, again, just to not, how can we always be getting better at every single thing that we're doing, right? And not go backwards, but like close that potential, close that gap. You know, here's where we're at. And again, that's that. It's a bold thing to want to own a professional sports team or NFL team. Again, I think I got a 0.01% chance. Is it going to happen? I have no idea. No idea.
But if you don't set, like I say this to my people, if I don't set the bar far enough out where you think it's unattainable, you're never going to reach your full potential.
This is what I do know is the goals that I wrote down in 2017 that I thought were going to take till 2030 for me to accomplish, I accomplished by 2021, 2022.
Yeah.
Right. But because I had a target and I focused on that target every single day. Right. And then put in the effort and, you know, it's like manifesting, but it's also then backfilling all that with work. Like it shrunk and compressed the time to get there. And so I think, you know, whatever we put out there, we truly can go get it. But I think it's just about, again, not wasting the moments, not wasting the time that we have, because we only get so much of it. And that's why it's like, man, even all the stuff that you hate right now, like, you got to embrace it. You got to like find the joy in it.
Yeah.
Because it's a part of the process. And like without the process, like if I could just fast forward and not have to go through any of the trouble that I've had to then get a lake house, to get it, like, I wouldn't appreciate it. I wouldn't appreciate it. If someone could just go, and it's like the movie Click, right? Have you seen that with Adam Sandler, right? Where like you miss all these moments. And if you can just push a button on a remote and go from 22 when I graduated to owning an NFL team, I'd own an NFL team. I'd be like, so what? That's why, like, with my kids, I'm like, you know, they're going to have to earn like the inheritance. They're going to have to, like, they're going to have to like, they're going to have to show, they're not just going to be handed it. They're going to have to, like, me and my wife were talking about this last night, like what we're planning on doing with Crew already. Like, I'm like at 8 to 11 years old, somewhere in there, like, he's going to be doing something around here. Right. Whatever those, just like, that's what I grew up doing. Like, similar to you had to wake up and cut wood. Like, I was a kid, I had to mow all the lawns at, you know, the veterinary clinics. I had to change all the light bulbs. I had to get the bugs out of the, you know, I had to mail out and stamp and fill envelopes and, you know, do stuff. Right. Yeah. And for the first, like, when my parents had to place a mortgage on and their two partners had to place a mortgage on the house to be able to build their 7,000 square foot veterinary clinic. And at that point in time, it was like razor thin, like that they could do, like it was like close, like by this, like, and it's probably like an acre you got to mow there, acre and a half. And so I'm thinking, I'm going to get a riding lawnmower for this, right? Hell no.
No, push, not automatic.
It was pushing. It was pushing at home, which was like 2 acres. With the deck was probably like, I don't know, 36. So
it's not,
28 to 30 inches, whatever. I don't know, something. And like, I had to push mow there. I had to push mow at home, right? Like, it wasn't for like a year and a half or 2 years after that we got this. So that would have been like 2002. We bought this used like 1988 John Deere mower that I then used for the, you know. But like, I learned at a young age, and again, I was paid minimum wage, which at the time, I don't know what it was, $5. It's like, I remember one time I got a raise up to like $10, and I was like fucking amped. I was so amped, because back then all I would do was, my goal was to be able to buy Packer tickets. So like, I knew back then I could buy them for like, there's $65 or whatever it was. Yeah. And so like, I'd be like calculating in my head how many hours I'd have to work to, you know, go get that. But I think if what people don't realize is like, the process is what is going to make you appreciate everything that you end up getting. Right. And if it's just given to you, I think that's where, like, you hear about trust fund babies or whatever that go the wrong way, because they went from, you know, they didn't have to really do it to get it. Yeah. Right. And I think if people have to go through the process, the ups, the downs, you know, I think that's what life's about. And you're going to miss a lot of life without that experience. So
I know my wife and I were sitting, we wake up like pretty early, like 4:30 to have coffee together, because it's like the only quiet time.
Yeah, for sure.
And
because someone's probably waking up by 5:30 around there.
Yeah. So, you know, I looked at her, I'm like, man, you know, 5 years ago we said this is where we wanted to be, and we're doing it. And that was like a weird realization, like, dang, I can't believe it's been 5 years, but also we are doing it. I mean, when I got done playing ball, I wasn't making money.
Right.
I went to school. I didn't have any money coming in. And then I went and worked for a steel manufacturer as a project manager, and really didn't make that much doing that. I was right out of college, just kind of tried to get a job. And then when I started working on the cannabis project, like I didn't really get paid for like 2 years. My dad paid me enough to give me insurance through his business.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it. So it was like, you know, basically all the money saved went to living until we started to actually, like, you know, make money at work. And so it was like, what do we got to do? I remember like sitting in Kalamazoo. We had a house there, and I just had this like breakdown moment where I just started crying. I mean, I never cry, but it was just like, you know, what are we doing here if it's not for a purpose? Like, what's our purpose? Like, I need to find a purpose, because after football was done, like I didn't have one. Yeah. It was like my dream. It was all I ever wanted to be.
I think every athlete goes through that at some point, let alone if you play in the NFL. I mean,
I just sat there every day and I would watch CNBC watching stocks. And it was like, I would go train and then I would watch stocks, and I'd go train. I know my wife was like, what are you doing, dude? But I just got to the point where I was like, I need something. Like I need to have a purpose. And when I started this cannabis thing, it was like I was reborn. Like I was like a new dude, you know? And then all the stuff we've had to go through, all the positives and negatives, but then looking back and going like, okay, this is what I said. I wanted to have this in place, this in place, this in place, this in place. This is where I wanted to be financially with the business, and like position ourselves for the future. And it's like, I was able to invest more money last year in passive income than I had had in my whole life, basically.
Right.
And where that just investing last year will put us long term,
right?
You know, with reinvesting and stuff like that, where our family is going to be at because of the decisions and the work that we put in over that 5-year period is like, it's unbelievable, you know. And it's not just about the money, but it is cool to see the fruits of your labor.
Yeah. Well, I think what you said there too just remind me as well. Like I said about the process, it makes you appreciate things, but also like what you just said, even when you go through the process, sometimes you forget to appreciate as well. So like there's times my wife and I too, we'll look up like, whoa, dang, like this is like, you know, like, I mean, my wife opening her business, or, you know, where we're at with the real estate or whatever, like, you know, sometimes again, even though we've been through all the ups and downs, to rewind like to 6 years ago, life is so different because of, again, the progress that's been made in just 6 years. Yeah. Right. And like, there's so many people out there that over the course of 1 or 2 or 3 years, you can change your life so much where it's unrecognizable, but people will only give it 2 weeks and then give up, or 6 weeks or whatever, or they're just scared to shoot the shot. They don't have, you know, the courage to go do it. And so, you know, somehow you got to find the courage, which I think is one of the most, you got a lot of courage doing what you're doing. Like, you never, like, you know, like, and somehow people got to muster up the courage. To me, that's the most important. It's more important than the money. It's more important than where you went to school. It's more important than what you know right now. If you have courage, you can figure it out and you can be successful. Yeah. That's a big key ingredient.
It's also really hard to tell people things are going well when it's not.
Yeah.
You know, like throughout the process, everybody's like, oh, cannabis, it's a booming business, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, we're doing great. We're doing great. But deep down, it's like, oh, we're really having a hard time right now.
Yeah.
So it's like hard to be that strength too, you know, where it's like, you know, we just trust the process. We will get there. But because everybody thinks cannabis is, everybody's making all this money. It's like, it's a much different game than people think.
Yeah. Awesome, dude. Well, I appreciate you sharing the cannabis story. You know, would love to have you on again at some point as you guys keep growing and whatnot, to hear where you're at and your story. You know, I appreciate you. I know you've been a part of the mastermind that we've done, and, you know, I just appreciate you coming to that and being here today and taking the time, because I think your story's amazing, dude. It's motivating. It motivates me. It inspires me. Love seeing it when you post stuff online, sharing the daily grind stuff, or just sharing like updates. I like hearing what's going on in your company. So real quick before we end, who was the biggest character you played with in the NFL?
character.
Yeah, just like
Michael Bennett.
Michael Bennett, just a
He was
character.
wild, yeah.
I've seen I like the him and his brother getting interviewed, and his brother Martellus like talk about the Bears where he chokeslammed the guy or whatever.
Yeah.
You ever see that? It's a hilarious video. What was you have a funny story you can share about Michael or not?
No, nothing crazy. But what I will say, when we were in Seattle, we used to have on Wednesdays competition Wednesdays, and a cool thing that Pete used to do. He used to bring in like just athletes, superstars, actors, actresses.
It's like what he used to do at USC too.
Yeah, they would like shoot hoops against guys in the team. And
is it every Wednesday during the season?
every Wednesday, yeah.
Cool.
And by far the best athlete on our team was Brian Walters. He was a white wide receiver from Cornell.
Okay.
And every person
Just like jumping, speed, quickness, and just whatever. Yeah.
Anything. And he, every basketball player that came in there, he beat him in shooting.
Huh.
It was awesome to see. But the environment was cool. I mean, just the environment there was like that. They were special for a reason. You know, what Pete created. And it's cool to see some of the guys like still playing, like Bobby Wagner.
Yeah.
Still playing.
Redskins, right?
Yeah.
Which is crazy because he's what? Shit.
I think
Commanders.
They might be going back to
I hope so. I hope they get that back. I still have a very hard time. I always say Redskins.
Yeah, I know. What's really cool about Bobby, I mean, amazing dude. Like nicest, coolest guy, but he's like less like 200 tackles away from Ray Lewis's record.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, which is really only like maybe a season and a half.
Yeah, I mean, he's never had a season less than 100 tackles.
Yeah.
So I mean, think about that. Nobody hardly even knows who Bobby Wagner is.
Yeah.
And he could beat Ray Lewis's record, and he's only in season 13.
Yeah.
Ray Lewis played 17.
Yeah. Yeah, that's crazy.
So like,
how many years were you in Seattle?
2 years.
You were 2 years in Seattle,
so
and you were there like kind of the prime time-ish years, right? Or right around.
Year, we lost to the Patriots in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Malcolm Butler.
And then the second year, we that was the third coldest game in NFL history when the Vikings were building their stadium.
Yeah,
they played at Gopher Stadium.
Yeah,
it was like negative 25.
I remember watching on.
I think it's Bud Grant came out with a T-shirt on.
Yes, yeah.
There's like 25 below comes out with a T-shirt.
Yep.
Like, okay, this guy's a bad dude.
90 years old. That was the Vikings had the doink, right? They missed a field goal or something. No, he just pulled it left or something.
Yeah, it was like a 20-yarder or something.
Yeah, and you guys won that one.
It was you come outside and your whole face is frosted. That's how cold it was.
But like, it's just cool to like think about, you like the guys you're around, like just. I mean,
like potential Hall of Famers,
numerous.
Richard Sherman, Cam Chancellor, Bobby Wagner, Earl Thomas, Marshawn Lynch.
It's a lot of work and a lot of hours that those guys put in that you were around.
Unreal how good. I mean, their defense, it was like so hard to practice against their defense.
Mm-hmm.
Brandon Meebane, Kevin Williams, who played for the Vikings for forever.
Mm-hmm.
It was the end of his career. He was unblockable.
Yeah.
Just like their whole defense. It was like, what are we doing here? How do we block these guys?
Yeah, that's awesome. That's good stuff. Well, Drew, I appreciate you coming down. Thank you, man. Guys, thanks for listening. Appreciate it. Be sure to subscribe, leave a comment. I'd love to leave a comment if you have any questions, and we'll see you next time.